Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a story that honestly feels like it's straight out of a fantasy epic. It's about a prophecy that seemed to predict the absolute near destruction of an entire civilization, the rise of the world's biggest empire, and then a final, unbelievable twist that flipped everything on its head and changed history forever. So let's start with this. It's a really fascinating prophecy from a Hadith, which is a recorded saying of the Prophet Muhammad. And look at the description. It's so specific, painting a picture of a future enemy in this stark, physical detail. And, for centuries, people were left wondering, who on earth could these people be? The identity was a total mystery.
Okay, so to even begin to answer that, we've got to rewind the clock. We need to go back to a time when the Muslim world wasn't just a center of civilization, it was the undisputed center of civilization. It was a beacon of knowledge and power for the entire world.
All right, our story starts in the era of the Abbasid Caliphate. And you have to understand, this wasn't just another empire. No way. This was a global hub for science, for culture, for innovation on a scale the world had literally never seen before.
And the epicenter of all of this? Baghdad. I mean, just imagine it. Its House of Wisdom was the greatest library on Earth, pulling in and translating knowledge from Greek, Persian, and Indian texts. Arabic became the language of science, kind of like how English is for us today. This is the place where the mathematician Al-Khwarizmi gave us algebra. Yeah, that algebra. And where incredible stories like Aladdin and Sinbad first came to be.
But you know how it goes. This golden age couldn't last forever. And what's really interesting here is that the fall didn't start with some big invasion from the outside. Nope. The decline began with cracks that started forming from within the empire itself.
So what happened? Well, first, tensions started bubbling up inside the empire. Then, the Abbasid Caliph's own Turkic generals basically took over, stripping him of his real power and leaving him as just a figurehead. The whole thing just fractured. This once united empire broke apart into rival states, and this weakness, it had some pretty dire consequences. In 1099, because they were so divided, the Muslim world lost the holy city of Jerusalem to the European Crusaders.
Okay, so into this really chaotic, fractured world, two figures were born who would go on to shape the destiny of millions. And what's wild is, they were alive at the same time, but their paths would never cross.
So on one side of the world, you have Saladin, born in what is now Iraq. He was destined to rise from a soldier to a celebrated sultan. Then, on the complete other side of the world, in the brutal steppes of Mongolia, a boy named Temujin is born right into tragedy. I mean, his father gets poisoned and he's forced into slavery as a kid before he makes this daring escape that would basically forge the man he was about to become.
And Saladin? Wow. He actually did what many thought was completely impossible. He managed to unite the fragmented Muslim states, and in 1187, he recaptured Jerusalem from the Crusaders. He became an absolute legend. Meanwhile, at that very same moment, halfway across the globe, that young boy Temujin was busy doing his own unifying, systematically bringing all the warring Mongol tribes under one single banner.
And pretty soon, Temujin would earn a new title. It's a name that would echo with terror for centuries to come. Genghis Khan.
Now that title, the universal ruler, it just perfectly captures his ambition, right? He wasn't thinking small, just uniting a few tribes. No, he was building a world empire. And to pull that off, he created one of the most disciplined and frankly, terrifying military machines in all of history.
His whole system was built on absolute, unquestioning discipline, and it was enforced by pure fear. Get this, the army was organized in units of 10. If one single soldier ran away in battle, the other 9 were executed on the spot. And justice was just as severe. If you stole a horse, you had to pay it back tenfold, or your entire family would be put to death. I mean, think about that. This brutal code forged an army that was unstoppable and fiercely loyal. And this quote, "This is the message Genghis Khan personally delivered to the Muslims in one of his first big conquests in Central Asia." It tells you so much about his mindset. He didn't just see himself as a conqueror. He was framing his invasion as a kind of divine punishment, an inescapable judgment from God himself.
So, when the Mongols finally clashed with their first major Muslim opponent, the Khwarezmian Empire, the devastation was just unprecedented. The population was reduced by 90%. 90! Let that sink in for a second. Genghis Khan didn't just conquer his enemies, he literally erased civilizations from the map.
And this terrifying campaign of total annihilation was about to reach its absolute devastating climax, the destruction of the intellectual and cultural heart of the entire Islamic world. The year is 1258, and Genghis Khan's grandson, a man named Hulagu Khan, arrives at the gates of Baghdad. You have to remember, for 500 years, this city had been the capital of the Abbasid Caliphate. It was, without a doubt, the largest and most prosperous city on the planet. What happened next was a tragedy on a scale that's hard to even comprehend. Historians at the time wrote that the river Tigris first ran red with the blood of the hundreds of thousands of people who were slaughtered, and then it ran black with the ink from every single book from the House of Wisdom, all of them just dumped into the river. It was the destruction of both human life and human knowledge on an unimaginable scale.
I mean, for decades, the Mongol advance was like a force of nature. It just seemed unstoppable. From China, across Russia, into the heart of the Middle East, nobody could stop them. After they sacked Baghdad, they kept pushing west, heading towards Egypt. But then, in 1260, at a place in Palestine called Ain Jalut, which means the spring of Goliath, something absolutely incredible happened.
The Mamluk Sultanate of Egypt met the Mongol army head-on and, completely against all odds, they defeated them. This was the first major defeat the Mongols had ever suffered, and it was decisive. This single victory at Ain Jalut stopped their westward expansion for good. And in doing so, it saved the holy cities of Mecca and Medina and really ensured the very survival of Islamic civilization.
So, the war was over. The prophecy, with its chillingly accurate physical description, had been fulfilled. But the story wasn't finished. The final chapter, well, it was something that no one, and I mean absolutely no one, could have ever predicted. Just look at this transition. The descendants of Hulagu, the very man who destroyed Baghdad, they began to change. It started with Berke Khan, Hulagu's cousin and the ruler of the Golden Horde. He converted to Islam. And then, over the generations, you see the Mongol names start to fade, replaced by distinctly Muslim ones like Muhammad, Timur, and Babur. It's one of the greatest ironies in all of history. The conquerors ended up adopting the religion and culture of the people they had conquered. The rulers of the Mongol states that came after, in Persia, in Russia, in Central Asia, they didn't just convert to Islam. They became its greatest new champions, funding a massive renaissance of Islamic art, architecture, and culture. And this all leads to the ultimate, mind-blowing legacy, the famous Mughal Empire in India, the one that gave the world incredible wonders like the Taj Mahal. It was founded by a man named Babur, and Babur was a direct descendant of Genghis Khan. So the lineage of the destroyer ultimately gave rise to one of the most celebrated and beautiful Islamic empires in all of history. And so that leaves us with this final, really provocative thought to chew on. You have two men, Umar, an early Muslim caliph, and Genghis Khan. Both of them built two of the largest, most powerful empires humanity has ever seen. Yet, history remembers one for his justice and leadership, and the other for his absolute brutality and terror. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What truly defines an empire's legacy in the end? Is it the sheer scale of its conquest, or is it the values it chooses to leave behind?